or they may ask for more. At some point, if you don't settle, usually it goes to a judge or what they call an arbitrator up at the State House, and they'll tell us whatever. And usually they'll look around at what's happening in other schools in the area, and they'll say, we'll do whatever they're doing over there. Now, my research shows small percentage increases, but there are increases. So when I present to the school committee a budget, I need to make them aware that that is a possibility, that that is a liability that's sitting out there, that we may have to pay for that. In terms of salary increases for other staff in the district, I mean, some of the staff has not seen an increase in 3 years. And I know that the economy is bad, but if we're going to give some staff an increase and not the others, I'm going to start to lose staff. And at this point, I'm already losing staff. You know, just about every other month, I get 1 or 2 people that leave us because somewhere else is paying more and they haven't seen an increase here. So the only way to get an increase is to leave. And then we start from scratch, and that hurts us, hurts our productivity.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see any other comments at this time in the public, so I'd like to advance the general discussion as listed on the agenda and certainly invite any of the attendees to the meeting to step forward as the meeting goes on. I had a couple of questions that I'd like to ask now as we're in the discussion phases of the budget, and I'll indicate the multiple questions, and then we can perhaps review the three. The first was on the assumption of the level-funded budget of the almost $15 million. Does that assume an increase in total revenue to the town from the revenues outside of the state budget, the 2.5% increase on the levy?
No, it does not.
Okay.
The level funded is just what we had last year, moving it forward.
Okay, so would it, and I'm looking at both sides, revenue and cost, but as we go forward with this process of budgeting, wouldn't it, or would it not, make sense for us to make an assumption that a portion of the increased tax levy that's coming into the town coffers should end up in available to the school budget?
It's an assumption we can make. I do know in some of the conversations that we've had at the town level in terms of department meetings, I know there's some massive increases in terms of the cost to the town. One being the snow and ice, how the town's going to deal with that. We're, part of that picture in some way, shape, or form. There's also the health insurance and retirement, and those are all increases. Some of them come from our staff, so whether they'll say, well, we'll give you the increase from the levy increase, but we'll assign it to those areas of your budget that are increasing and we don't have any control over. That is what's the discussion that we're going to have at the subcommittee, which I believe, if you haven't gotten to
March 8th.
March 8th, right.
And I do understand that, and to prepare, that's why I'm asking the question now.
Yes, at this point, that budget does not show any of that increase.
And having attended the town budget subcommittee, which includes input from Mr. Herrenstein and myself, I recognize that part of those town expenses, such as health care, it's not reflected in our budget, but it's health care,
assigned
pensions
to the schools, yeah.
are expenses incurred from the school side. So I recognize some of our liability, if you will, to cover those expenses, but at the same time, I look at the 2.5% increase on the current levy, but I also do see some new growth in town above and beyond the levy, which represents additional new revenues.
Like in what area?
Well, if a piece of land is converted into a CVS store and has increased revenue, then there's there's more than 2.5%, hopefully. I haven't seen the analysis on that particular referenced piece of property, but as new growth in town yields new revenue, it's above and beyond the 2.5%. So going forward, I hope to be able to put my arms around, on behalf of the school committee, if there is potentially some share of increased revenues, whether it be from the 2.5 levy or new growth in town. So I think that's one area that we can continue to look at as we deliberate the budget. Secondly, I certainly, as everyone most likely knows, we received a positive vote last evening on the Green Repairs Program. And briefly, the focus, the Green Repairs budget in terms of the mission is to, clearly states, to have energy savings which then lead to additional operating funds for your schools. In other words, your savings on energy should then be available to other programs. And that essence, as we're forecasting our costs for next year, and I know we touched upon this previously, but I would still urge a total analysis on the savings from the repairs, as well as our commitment to our total capital management project for our 5-year plan plus, to go back and look at the energy audit, which identified things like roof and windows, work with our energy providers to see if there's any savings available through our energy program. And the only example that I can think of is if there's any purchasing collaboratives that may be available. I know the town side has looked at it, and we may have also, but I would just hope that with the confidence that the town has placed in these repairs, and the goal of the repairs is to reap some energy savings, and it clearly states as the goal of the Green Repairs Program to make those savings funds available for educational programs. Thirdly, and lastly, I just wanted to comment on the total synopsis, if you will, in that although we have had, we're at stage one. This is the first opportunity since our presentation that we as a committee can get together and have a complete dialogue. So I'd like to add and get the superintendent's input on if there is any other potential, as I indicated, some possible savings or revenue streams. On the flip side, is there any additional cuts? We talked about if we, that it's these cuts is where we have to make our decisions. But my understanding is that as a body, we as a school committee should be evaluating each line item on this budget, and that there may in fact be some other cuts that we as a group should identify and have further discussion on. So I'm asking you to...
Can I ask first about the green projects, or comment on the green projects?
Sure.
I do realize that our main goal with the green projects is not only to make sure that we don't incur any more damage to the structure of the buildings, in particular in terms of the roof, but it was our intent to perhaps also include some additional insulation for the decks, both here and at the